Standards on auditing SRE 2014. Review of interim financial reporting. Review of interim financial reporting performed by the independent auditor of the entity. Good morning to everyone. Good, good morning to everyone. This is People's Advocate Sreemannarayana Mallela. Today I'm talking about SRE 2014 review of interim uh, financial institutions. Review of interim FI performed by the independent auditor of the entity. I'm talking on that. SRE 2014 overview is SRE 2014 covers the auditor professional responsibilities when reviewing the interim financial information of an audit client and the form and content of the audit report. Application of SRE 2014, it applies when the independent auditor review the interim financial information as part of their audit of the entity financial statements. Interim financial information interim financial information is a financial data prepared and presented according to the applicable financial reporting framework. It includes either complete or condensed financial statement for a period shorter than the entity financial year. Example, interim financial information may be related to somebody said hi. Interim financial information. The interim financial information is a financial data prepared and presented according to the applicable reporting framework. It includes either complete or condensed financial statement for a period shorter than the entity financial year. Interim financial information may relate to the financial statement for a quarter of the financial year. Objective of an engagement. Mr. Syed said hi. I'm also saying hi. Objective of an engagement review, interim financial information, objective of review. The objective is for the audit. Objective for the auditor to conclude if anything from the review suggestions and that the object suggestions and of the financial year. And objective of an engagement review financial information. Objective of review, the objective is for the auditor to conclude if anything from the review suggestion that interim financial information is not prepared correctly as per applicable financial reporting framework. Procedures to reduce the risk. The auditor performs inquiries, analytical and review procedure to reduce the risk of giving an inappropriate conclusion when the interim financial information is materially misstated. A difference from an audit, the objective of the review differs from an audit. A review does not give a basic to express an opinion on whether the financial information is true and fair or presented as per applicable financial reporting framework. Assurance level. A review does not provide a reasonable assurance. A review does not provide a review does not give the objective of the review is differs from the an audit. Okay, and a review does not give a basic to express an opinion on whether financial information is true and fair view as presented as per the applicable financial reporting framework. Assurance level, a review does not provide a reasonable assurance that the interim financial information is free from material misstatement. Hmm. Now, a review involve making enquiries with those responsible for financial and accounting matters and applying analytical and other review procedures. Evidence in review. A review may highlight significant matters affecting the interim financial information, but it does not provide the full evidence needed for an audit. Okay, auditor and client must agree on the terms of the engagement, which are usually substandings. Nature of the engagement, responsibilities, assurance be there. Understanding the entity and its environment. Auditors understanding the auditor needs to understand an entity. The auditor needs to understand the entity and its environment, including internal control for both annual, interim, financial information to plan the review. This helps to identify potential material misstatements and assess the likelihood of their occurrence. Choose enquiries, analytical and other procedures that helps determine if the intent of the financial information are as per the applicable financial reporting framework. Same auditor for prior periods. One minute. I will have a quote and come. Okay, guys. Sorry for your inconvenience. See, this is People's Advocate Sreemannarayana Mallela came in front of you to discuss the subject matter of auditing. Our auditing class will start every day morning 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. will complete. Our target is to become expert in auditing subject. Whoever watching my YouTube channel, target is understand the auditing, discuss about the auditing, and expertise becoming an auditor. That's the goal of the class. Our class timing is morning 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. So understood, right? Now let's go. Let's go. Dear friends, understanding the entity and its environment, auditor understanding the auditor needs to understand the entity and its environment, including internal control for both annual and interim financial information. To plan the review, this helps to identify potential material misstatement and assess the likelihood of their occurrence. Choose inquiries, analytical, and other procedures that help determine if the interim financial information as per applicable financial reporting framework. Same auditor for prior period, if the auditor has audited the annual financial statement before, they already have an understanding of the entity and its internal control for the audit. When planning the review of interim financial information, the auditor updates their understanding. The auditor also understands any differences in internal control between the interim and annual financial information. The procedures to update understanding, the auditor uses various procedures to update their understanding of the entity, like read documentation from the prior years audit and preview previous interim reviews to identify matters that could affect current interim financial information. Assess the risk, including the risk of management override of controls from prior years audit. Review the most recent annual financial information and interim financial information. Consider materiality relate. Consider corrected material misstatement and uncorrected immaterial misstatement from the prior year's financial statements. Evaluating continuing issues from the prior years like a material weakness in internal control. Consider results from any audit procedures performed for the current year financial statement before the review date. Before the review date. Consider the results of any internal audit and management subsequent actions. Enquiries with the management about the risk that interim financial information may be misstated due to fraud. Ask the management about any changes in the entity business activities. Enquire, Enquire with the management about the risk that interim financial information may be misstated due to fraud. Ask management about any changes. Ask the management about any changes in the entity business activities. Enquire with the management about any significant changes in internal control they affect on the interim financial information. Ask management about how the interim financial information was prepared and the reliability of the underlying accounting records. New auditor. A new auditor who has not audited the annual financial statements. Financial statements should also understand the entity and its internal control for both annual and interim financial information. Communication with component auditor. The auditor determines and communicates the review procedures for components to other auditor. Enquiries, analytical and other review procedures. The review procedures, a review does not usually require tests like inspection, observation, or confirmation. It mainly involves enquiries with responsible personnel and analytical procedure to review interim financial information instead of corroborating significant accounting matters. Auditors understanding The auditor understanding of the entity, its internal control, and prior risk assessments affects the review procedures, including materiality considerations for the entire financial information. Procedures to be performed. The auditor typically performs the following: read minutes from meetings, shareholder governance, to identify matters that may affect the interim financial information, and inquiries about issues, not the minutes, not in the minutes. Consider the affect issues like audit modifications, unadjusted misstatements, from the prior year's audit or reviews. Communicate with other auditors regarding a significant components of the entity financial inquiry with the management about various matters including whether the interim financial information aligns with the financial reporting framework, whether new transactions require new accounting principles, whether the interim financial information contains uncorrected misstatements, whether there have been changes in accounting principles or how they are applied, whether new transactions require, whether new transactions require new accounting principles, whether the interim financial information contain uncorrected misstatements, any unusual situations, any unusual situations, any unusual situations in contingent liabilities, litigations and claims, compliance with the debt events, covenants, any matter arising during the review process, a significant transactions occurred during the cutoff period, any knowledge of the fraud suspected from involving the management or key employees, any allegations, any allegations of fraud or suspected fraud affecting the interim financial information, any actual or possible non-compliance with laws or regulation that could affect the interim financial information. Read interim financial information framework. Some review procedures can be done before or during the preparation of the interim financial information. Example, understanding the entity or reading the minutes. Performing some review procedures early in the interim period helps to identify accounting matters earlier. Auditor may perform certain audit procedures concurrently with the review of the interim financial information for efficiency. A review usually doesn't require confirming litigation or claims with the lawyers, but direct communication may be necessary in the interim financial information seems to be incorrect. A review usually doesn't require confirming the litigation or claim with the lawyers, but direct communication may be necessary in the interim financial information since incorrect. The auditor may reconcile the interim financial information with accounting records. Okay, now enquiries about subsequent events and going concern. Enquiries about subsequent events. The auditor should inquire if management has identified events that may require adjustments or disclosure in the interim financial information. The auditor should inquire if management assessment of going concern has changed, and if events suggest doubt about it, the auditor should ask about management plan and consider the adequacy of disclosures. Additional enquiries. If material adjustment is questioned, the auditor should make additional enquiries or procedures to transactions with management or reviewing the contracts. Evaluation of misstatement identified. Evaluation of uncorrected misstatements. The auditor should assess whether the uncorrected misstatements, both individually and in total, are material to the interim financial information. Evaluation of the misstatements. Any misstatements, including inadequate disclosures, are assessed both individually and in total to decide if material adjustment is needed to ensure the interim financial information is as per applicable financial reporting framework. Professional judgment. The auditor uses professional judgment to evaluate the materiality of any uncorrected misstatement the entity has that fixed. Obtaining the management representations. Internal control responsibility. Management acknowledges responsibility for designing and implementing internal control to prevent and detect fraud and error. Compliance with financial reporting framework. Management confirms that the interim financial information is prepared and presented as per applicable financial reporting framework. Uncorrected misstatements. Management believes that the uncorrected misstatements is identified by the auditor or immaterial, both individual and in total. A summary of these items is included in the attached to the WR. Disclosure of fraud or suspected fraud. Management has disclosed to the auditor any fraud or suspected fraud that may have affected the entity. Risk assessment of misstatement. Management has disclosed the results of its assessment of risk that could cause the interim financial information to be materially misstated due to fraud. Due to fraud. Non-compliance with the laws and regulations. Management has disclosed any known or possible non-compliance with the laws and regulations that could affect the interim financial information. Subsequent events. Management has disclosed any significant events that have occurred after the balance sheet date that may require adjustments or disclosures in the interim financial information. Auditor's responsibility for accompanying information. Read the other information. The auditor should read the other information that comes with the interim financial information to check if any of its materiality inconsistent with the financial data. Material inconsistency, if material inconsistency is found, the auditor considers whether to amend the interim financial information or other information. Material misstatement in interim financial information, if an refuses to make the changes, the auditor consider the impact on the review report. Material misstatement in other information. If an amendment is needed in the other information and management refuses to make the changes, the auditor may include an additional paragraph in the review's report or withdraw from the engagement. Material misstatement of fact in other information. Material misstatement is a fact in other information. If the auditor identifies material misstatements of fact information unrelated to financial matters, the auditor discuss issues with the management and assess the validity of the information, potentially involving a third party consultation. Validity of the other information, when discussing the apparent misstatement, the auditor consider whether there are differences in judgment or opinion and may suggest management to consult a third party. If management refuses to amend, if management refuses to correct a material misstatements of fact, the auditor may consider notifying governance or seeking legal advice. Communication of matters to the management. I communicate to appropriate level of management information. Other information related to the interim financial information. Other information not related to the interim financial information. The auditor, the auditor may identify a material misstatement of the fact information unrelated to financial matters. The auditor discusses the issue with the management and assess the validity of the information, potentially involving third party consultation. Validity of the other information. When discussing the apparent misstatement, the auditor considers whether there are differences in judgment or opinion and may suggest management to consult a third party. If management refuses to amend, if management refuses to correct the material misstatement, a fact, the auditor may consider the notifying government seeking legal advice. Communication of the matters to the management, a communication to appropriate level of management. If material adjustment is needed If material adjustment is needed for the interim financial information to comply with the applicable financial reporting framework, the auditor should inform the appropriate level of management. Communicate to those charged with governance. If management does not respond appropriately within a reasonable time, the auditor should inform to those charged with governance. Manner of communication. Manner of communication. The auditor communicates the matter either orally or in writing. The choice depends on timing of communication, documenting oral communication, to those charged with governance not responded. If to those charged with governance does not respond within a reasonable time, the auditor should consider whether to modify the review report, whether to withdraw from the engagement, resign from the appointment. Communication of fraud. If the auditor believes fraud or non-compliance with the laws exist, communicate to the management. The auditor should communicate the matter to the appropriate level of the management. Conclusion of collusion or involvement of management. Auditor consider the likelihood of collusion, involvement of management. In fraud, auditor also considers reporting to those charged with governance. Implications for the review. Governance is matters to governance matter to those charged with governance. Auditor communicates matters of governance interest arising from review to those charged with governance. Auditor identifies matters that are important and relevant for to those charged with governance. In overseeing the financial reporting and disclosure process. Understand, friend? Now, the review report on interim financial information. What are the contents in the review report in the intent of the financial information? Interim financial information title, address, introductory para, identify the interim financial information reviewed, including the title of the facts of the financial statement, date, period is covered, management representations will be covered, uh, financial framework, management responsible for the preparation and fair presentation financial framework, and CFW. The management is responsible for the preparation and presentation in accordance with the applicable framework. Auditor responsibilities. The auditor express a conclusion on the interim financial information. The review consists of inquiries mostly from the financial and the accounting personnel and the analytical procedures. A review is less detailed than an audit as per standards on auditing and does not provide same level of assurance. No audit opinion is expressed. Now, conclusion para. fair presentation, financial framework, conclusion, whether anything has come to the auditor's attention to suggest the interim financial information does not present fairly in all material respects. In accordance with the applicable framework, CFW, conclusion on whether interim financial information is not prepared in all material respects in accordance with applicable framework. Okay. Now, date, place, signature, and membership number, FRN, UDIN. The unique document identification number must be generated and stated for the review engagement. As it is an assurance engagement under SRE 2400 and 2014. Preparation from the applicable financial reporting framework for preparation and presentation of interim financial information. Modified conclusion. The auditor should express a qualified or adverse conclusion if they believe a material adjustment is needed for the interim financial information to comply with applicable financial reporting framework. If the interim financial information may be materially affected by a departure from the framework and management does not correct it, the auditor modifies the review report. Manner of modification. The modification should describe the nature of the departure and, if possible, its effect in the interim financial information. If necessary information is omitted for adequate disclosure, the auditor and modifies the review report and include the omitted information. The modification is necessary. The modification is generally done by adding an explanatory paragraph to the review and report and qualifying the conclusion. Adverse conclusion. If the departure is material and pervasive, the interim financial information, whether auditor should express adverse opinion, adverse conclusion, limitation on the scope, meaning of the limitation and scope. A limitation and scope is imposed by management. Do not accept engagement. The auditor should not accept the review engagement if they are aware of the limitation. If they are aware of the limitation and scope imposed by management that will prevent completing the review. Limitation after accepting the engagement. If a limitation is imposed after accepting the engagement, the auditor if refused, the auditor cannot complete the review and must communicate the reasons in writing. If refused, the auditor cannot complete the review and must communicate the reasons in writing. Material adjustment. If the auditor believes a material adjustment is needed for the interim financial information to comply with the framework, they must communicate this matter. Legal and regulatory responsibilities. The auditor considers any legal requirement to issue a report. If required, auditor disclaims a conclusion and explains why the review can't be completed. Other limitations on scope, circumstances. A limitation on scope can occur for reasons other than management's actions. In rare cases, limitation may be material but not pervasive to the financial information. Modifying the review report. In such cases, the auditor modifies in such cases, the auditor modifies the report to indicate the matter and qualifies the conclusion expected. If a limitation and scope existed, its impact on the review and the implications for the review report. Next, going concern and significant uncertainties. Emphasis matter paragraph. If the auditor identifies a material uncertainty about the entity ability to continue as a going concern during the review and adequate disclosures is made in the interim financial information, the auditor modifies the report with an emphasis matter paragraph. Uncertainty period, the auditor may have added an emphasis matter paragraph in a prior audit review report to highlight a MURG's issues. Continued uncertainty. If the uncertainty persists and is adequately disclosed in the current paragraph to the current report to highlight the continued material uncertainty modification, continued materiality uncertainty, modified conclusion. If the material uncertainty is not adequately disclosed, the auditor express a qualified or Other considerations. Review report can interim financial information. Inclusion of review report. Management agrees that the review report will be included in any document containing interim financial information if it mentioned that the information has been reviewed by the auditor. Review report not included. If the review report is not included, the auditor may need legal advice to decide on the next step. Modified review report not included. If the auditor issues a modified and review report and management failed to include it, the auditor may seek legal advice and may consider resigning from the audit of the engagement. Read in conjunction with latest audited financial statement. Condensed financial information. Interim financial statements may not include all details of full set of statements, but should explain key events or changes in the annual financial statement. It is assumed users have access to the latest audited financial statement. A statement requirement. If necessary, the auditor discuss with management about including a statement to read the interim financial information in conjunction with the latest audited financial statement. Misleading information. If the statement is not included, the auditor evaluate the interim financial information is a misleading and consider the impact on the review report. Next, documentation. Review the documentation. The auditor must prepare documentation that is sufficient and appropriate to support the auditor's conclusion and show that the review was performed in line with these SRE, service review engagement, and relevant legal regulatory requirement. Dear friends, this video is complete. I would like to come back within few minutes, just 5 minutes break, and then we'll start another video. That video may start public financial institutions and other assurance services. That thing I will start. Thank you, Randall, who are watching my YouTube channel, and I'm grateful to you. And if you have any doubt, you please kindly call me back. My mobile number is 9677205265. My mobile number is 9677205265. Thank you, Randall. Bye bye. See you, Randall.